Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we are continuing to move forward through yet another season together. As always, you can find all of our 100% free, 24/7 boots on the ground content of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you follow us on social media such as Facebook or Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and today we are talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and their big trade on Wednesday evening. Now, late in the night on Wednesday, I believe it was around 10:30, somewhere around that range, the Jaguars traded cornerback Tyson Campbell and the 7th round pick they got from the Eagles for Fred Johnson to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for cornerback Greg Newsome and a 6th round pick that the Browns had from the New York Jets. So yet another trade between the Jaguars and the Browns, James Gladstone and Andrew Berry. And there were a few different factors, I think, that went into this trade. One of them was, I think if you're looking purely at Tyson Campbell, it wasn't anything Tyson did, in my opinion. I think that the explosive plays had become an issue. The 4 biggest plays that they've allowed through the air this year all came against Tyson Campbell in coverage. The 2 biggest things that have plagued him in his career have been an inability to find the ball in the air and injuries. He stayed healthy this year. There was only one game where he left a little bit with injuries, and that was only for a few plays against Houston. Went right back in. Made a game-changing play. Forced a fumble on Nico Collins. But the other aspect of it, just the ball skills, the playing the football in the air. I mean, his last interception came, I believe, week 1 of 2023. There's just not enough plays being made, in my opinion, in a defense where seemingly everybody else is making some plays. And that's not, again, to say Campbell didn't provide a lot of value or that Campbell didn't do things well. He did. There were definitely things Tyson added to this defense and why it's a top-ranked defense. His run defense, his tackling, his physicality at the line of scrimmage, his physicality on in-breaking routes. I mean, Tyson Campbell did some good things for the Jaguars this season. But the 4 explosive plays he's given up, that make up, I think, over half of the yardage he's allowed as a corner this season, were significant plays. He made a game-changing play against the Houston Texans, but he also allowed the Texans' only touchdown of the day. Allowed a big touchdown against the Cincinnati Bengals. Allowed a big catch against San Francisco 49ers. Allowed a big catch against the Kansas City Chiefs. It had started to become kind of a weekly thing. And I think when you're looking at pure skill sets, Tyson Campbell's and Greg Newsome's, and you're asking, okay, which one fits the Jaguars scheme the best, I think it's Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome is a great click and close coverage guy. He can play with vision, eyes on the ball, eyes on the quarterback, and drive on routes. He's really comfortable in space. He's kind of, really, frankly, an ideal zone corner. He's played a lot of man in Cleveland. He was also forced to play a lot of slot corner in Cleveland. Not really his game. He's made some tackles this year, but I think if you're making any kind of trade-off between him and Tyson, you're giving up some of that run defense, some of that physicality, some of that tackling ability near the line of scrimmage that Tyson provided. But you're trading it off for what they hope is upside in the passing game. They think that Greg Newsome's skill set is a great match for what Anthony Campanile does on defense. And I would say the expectation is not for Newsome to play a big role this weekend. He didn't practice with the Jaguars on Thursday, so his first practice will be with them on Friday. Only one real practice with the team before a game. Just coming back from London as well. I would assume you see Buster Brown or Jarian Jones starting for the Jaguars on Sunday against the Seahawks. And I'd say probably Buster Brown. Just based on how they deploy corners against the Chiefs. So, with that in mind, again, it's nothing Tyson Campbell did. Tyson Campbell has been a great soldier for the franchise for years. You won't find anybody in that building that has a bad thing to say about Tyson Campbell. The professionalism, the work ethic, the leadership, how he was as a teammate. I mean, I talked to guys in the locker room on Thursday about it, and Jarian Jones said it hurt. He said, he can't really put into words what Tyson meant to him in the start of his career. So this isn't a situation like they've had in the past couple of years, and there's been several, where they trade a guy and it feels like they just purged the locker room of a negative influence. There's been a number of those. This isn't one of them. It truly feels like, a situation where, this Jaguars regime is not the one that paid him. There was a lot of financial commitment to Tyson in terms of if the Jaguars had kept him. I mean, he was basically locked in as a starter for the next couple seasons because of his contract. And just based on how this season has gone, it stands to reason that the Jaguars can probably get better short-term play at the cornerback position elsewhere. So, yeah, they're going to pay Newsome a decent amount this year. And if they re-sign Newsome, probably more than what Campbell makes the next couple of years. So it could be potentially more expensive. But a couple of different things at play. I think for the Jaguars, one, I can tell you guys that the Jaguars are not looking at this as okay, we traded for him. Let's go ahead and get to the negotiating table now. I think the Jaguars want to see how it goes. They have no reason to do it now. They don't have to make that decision now. They have 12 more games on the schedule. Really 11 games, for Newsome, considering I don't think you'll see him much against the Seahawks. But they have time and a sample size that they can get before they have to make that decision. And if he's in a contract year, which he is, and he balls out as a result of kind of being given this audition, I don't see how that's a bad thing for the Jaguars. You've seen how well Devin Lloyd's played this year. You've seen how well Travis Etienne has played this year. Hungry guys. I think the Jaguars encourage that. I don't think the Jaguars shy away from that. And if he plays well enough for the Jaguars to want to extend him, then that's a win. I think that it's not a situation, though, where you're saying, okay, the Jaguars, have no leverage and they have to extend him. Not necessarily. Because by trading Tyson, they've opened themselves up to future flexibility at the position. Future money saved that can be spent at the position. Not obviously in 2026. They'll have $19.5 million dead cap for Tyson in 2026, which is a pretty tough pill to swallow to pay a player to not play for you. But it already become a sunken, cost fallacy that, one way or another, he was getting paid by them. It didn't mean that they had to keep playing him. So if they're going to keep paying him, they might as well find a scenario where they get a player who they think is a better fit in their system and what they want to do defensively, which they believe is what they did here. And, if you don't extend Newsome and he walks in free agency, maybe you get a potential compensatory pick for him. Maybe that can help soften that blow a little bit. But also, I think a part about this trade that isn't getting talked about much is the fact that the swapping of those picks, that seventh going to be a late seventh, people. I know the Eagles have a lot of issues. I don't think Jalen Hurts is particularly good myself as a pure, just looking at the best quarterbacks in the game. They get results, but, their passing game feels like it's obviously become very elementary. But the Eagles are a great team. So that's going to be a late seventh. That sixth is going to be an early sixth unless the New York Jets get hot, and nothing really suggests they will. So between an early sixth and a late seventh, that's probably nearly like a 50-plus pick, swap up for the Jaguars. That's not insignificant. This is a franchise that values those late-round picks. Look at Rayon Lane. Look at LaQuint Allen. Look at Jonah Monheim. 3 late day 3 picks who are all contributing for the Jaguars on special teams and offense this year. I think the Jaguars like the end of the deal that they got here, even if it was a trade that I'm sure not a lot of people saw coming. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I'll be back next time.